Welcome to Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial, the home for financial advice in a language you can understand. Created by Marc Freedman of Freedman Financial, he and his team of certified financial planner professionals will discuss timely topics that help individuals and families make smart financial decisions. And now, get ready for this week's edition of Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial.
Welcome back to another edition of Dollars and Cents, our weekly podcast. Welcome. I'm your host today, Marion Gilman. My co-host, typical co-host, Marc Freedman, is traveling. So today I have the great pleasure of having our financial planning director, Christian Karcher, with me. How are you, Christian?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Mary.
Oh, my goodness. So happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I know there's no confetti for me to throw up.
No,
a few episodes back.
I think it's over there.
Okay,
you know, Marc was throwing confetti one day, but
it might be past the
Marc.
season.
Exactly.
Yes.
We are a couple weeks in, but you haven't talked to the clients for the past couple weeks, so wanted you to be able
through the camera.
Through the camera. That is true. That is true. We talk to clients every day in the office, and we are here and working. And tomorrow, it's been very cold here. We're hoping it's going to warm up a little bit because it's been very cold. But it is winter.
It is winter. I'm in my element. My Midwestern roots are holding fast.
So this must be warm, right, for you?
You know, I used to think that, and I think I have softened over the years here in New England, where it doesn't get quite as cold. We get a little bit more snow.
Well, you're going to have to go back to Wisconsin more often,
Yeah, there you go, and reset.
In the winter, yeah, exactly. Well, there you go. It doesn't take long, does it?
No, it really doesn't.
I know. My father-in-law moved to Florida, and he would come back, and he'd be cold all the time. And he lived up here his whole life. But as soon as he did that, So, anyways. So welcome back. We have a very interesting episode for you today. One of the things that we ask clients who come in, because we want to get a gauge of where they're at, and of course we look at a variety of different facts of your life. But one of the questions we always have for you, and it's very insightful, is what has been your best and worst investment? So Christian, you're the one that looks at all of these fact finders and looks at what all the client answers. So what do you think, or what can you tell us about what some of those answers are as to best and worst investments?
Oh, absolutely. It's fascinating to see. We asked that question, and then, it's kind of more an informative question for us to understand who you are and what your past experiences have been.
Exactly.
And it's always fascinating. People generally group into a few different areas where it's, one of these few things that you say is the best investment you ever made. And it's really consistent.
Really?
It's very consistent. It's either people say that their homes are the best investment that they've ever made.
And let's chat a bit about that.
Absolutely.
What do you think about that answer?
So
that their home is the best investment.
So I think a lot of people, when they think about that, they think, okay, I paid $19,900 for my home 30 years ago, and I look on Zillow today, and it's worth $700,000, whatever that number is.
Sure.
And they think, look at that return. And I think there's a few things that people don't really think about when they're thinking about the home's value.
Such as?
Well, most importantly, your expenses that have gone into that home. You don't then back out the repairs and the homeowner's insurance.
And the taxes.
The hassle. So people see it, as starting, ending, and not thinking about the expenses in between.
Right.
And
and how about improvements?
Well, and then
that's the other thing.
Right, and that gets added, of course, to the value. And so when you think about the value of your home, obviously, home prices have increased significantly. And so it has been a really good investment for people. But I think a lot of times it's either you ignore some of the costs that were associated with it.
Right.
But the other thing that makes it a great investment for a lot of people is how long you stay in a home.
And that should be a lesson to everyone, because so many people look at short-term returns.
Yes.
And for instance, there are times when you could purchase a home and it actually goes down in value. I know nobody thinks that ever happens, but it really does. We've seen that happen, where over the first few years, or maybe it goes up a little bit in the first few years and then down a little bit, because the real estate market changes. But you're not valuing your house every day like a stock in the stock market.
I know. In modern times, some people do because they're watching those Zillow numbers.
I know.
But, you know, when I first started in this business, someone said to me, you know, if there was a flashing sign above your house with its current market value and it traded all day long like the stock market or the mutual funds that are in your accounts and you watched it, you would have a lot more anxiety over your house as an investment.
Absolutely.
But the value of being able to buy something, an asset that can be resold later on, has value to you, and then never look at it and then sell it in 20, 30, 40 years. Right. Regardless of what the return number is, if it's a positive return number, you're going to be impressed by the amount of growth that you've seen just because of the power of compounding interest over time.
Absolutely. It is amazing. And so, yes, it does turn out that frequently a home is a very good investment. But when you look at the average annual return on a property, it's very similar to stocks or bonds. I mean, sometimes it's much less than stocks when you look at it over a long-term horizon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. But that's an interesting one. So keep in mind, we haven't even deducted the costs of ownership when we're saying it's approximately the same. So what else do you see, Christian, besides the home?
The home. The other good one, this is a bit more of a big picture answer, but their kids' education.
Oh,
Child
that's
education
interesting.
Is often written down on that little fact finder, and I always find it interesting because, you know, it brings up the conversation of, well, not just how much did you pay for the education, but what did you get out of it? What about that education made you feel like it was a really good investment?
Well, I can tell you from my perspective, because I did pay for my son's college education, and what it gave me was freedom from supporting him for the rest of his life.
Which, when you think about the
There's
cost,
a lot to be said for that.
Of taking care of a person, it's a huge, huge cost. And
well, think about you, same thing, right?
Absolutely.
You know, I know you haven't put kids through college yet, but you know, you benefited greatly. I'm sure your mother and father would say, you know, that was a good investment.
Absolutely. And so education being one of those investments.
Sure.
And I always think that that's interesting to think about because a lot of the clients who come through and are answering that question as new clients are people who are approaching retirement and they've seen the end of that investment, right?
Right.
They're not, you know, still putting the kids through college. It's the kids are through college, they're on their own, they're making their own way. And a lot of times when we see younger families where they're saying, you know, oh, I don't know, we're kind of wavering back and forth. Do we want to pay for private school? How are we going to save for college? Should we prioritize that?
Right.
They're kind of stuck in the very moment of it.
Right.
And it feels like a big expenditure. It feels like a big number to pull out of your cash flow to save for those college expenses. And it is, and it's important to think about your entire financial life, but making sure you set something aside for that education if you have the ability to. I can almost assure you that in 15, 20 years down the line, you're going to be really happy that you made that dedicated savings.
Absolutely. And that's, again, you know, looking at college today, it's a very different perspective from even when my son went to school or when I went to school. And it still, you know, was a very good investment in both those instances. And now you look at it, it is incredibly costly to go to school. However, you know, college graduates do make considerably more than high school graduates, and it's almost a requirement nowadays, probably.
In a lot of cases, it really is, depending on the field that the child wants to get into.
And you just have to be careful as to, you know, where your child chooses to go and whether or not that is affordable. So, a big decision, but also a great perspective, and it tells you a little bit about the clients as well, where their priorities are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's next?
So
I know there's another really big one.
There's another big one that people often list, and it kind of depends what column it goes into. It's either one of the best investments that they've ever made or one of the worst investments that they've ever made.
So how is that possible? How could some people feel it's the best and some people feel it's the worst?
Well, it's because it's something that is very volatile. It can have great returns and it can have bad returns. And that is your company's individual stock.
Oh, got it.
So that is very dependent.
Sure.
And like we always talk about on these videos and calls and with clients, owning individual stocks can be very risky.
Yes.
But there's also a really big opportunity for growth. And so what we often see people come in is people say, you know, one of my best investments was my employee stock.
Right.
And I was able to put money into the employee stock purchase plan, or maybe they own some of the shares through their 401k at work.
Yes.
And because over the last 20 years, that company happened to be one of the better performers, it was a really good investment for them. And on the other side, the people who say, oh, that was one of the worst investments I ever made, said, yeah, I had a bunch of my employee stock. Maybe it was given to me through restricted stock units or stock options, or maybe it was in the 401k. And it went from way up here to way down here, and it lost 80% of its value. And I had been banking on it for here, and I don't like that. That's a bad experience for someone to have.
Absolutely. But there are ways around that. And so you need to be very careful that you're not putting too much into your company stock. And we always promote the fact that, you don't want your life goals to be achieved, or they usually can't be achieved, but you don't want them to be dependent on a single stock. And where your income is dependent on the company, and if your investments are dependent on the company, that's a tough situation to be in.
Yes.
Not to say that being in an employee stock purchase program or getting employee stock is not good. It's just you need to be disciplined about liquidating as well.
Yes, everything in moderation. And one of the things we often see from the people that listed their employee stock as one of the best investments is they oftentimes say, well, I can't get rid of any of it. And that's a really difficult conversation to have because there's an emotional attachment.
Yes.
If it's one of your best investments, you've probably never seen it really go down a significant amount.
Sure.
And we know from our experience that there are a lot of stocks out there, a lot of companies that have done really well for many, many years and then quickly turn around.
Yeah.
And so what we want to do when we're planning and making a financial plan, we want to make sure that the investment strategy is set up in a way that if you have employee stock, if that thing goes to zero, we can still meet your goals. And if that's not possible, then we need to start looking at reducing the position.
Absolutely. So you just need to, this is just to say that there are a variety of things that individuals might think are great investments or really bad investments. It's very important. I think the lessons we can learn from this, it's very important to hold for a long-term horizon in many cases. Don't look at short-term returns. Don't focus on one single individual stock, no matter what it is. You want to be smart about all these aspects of planning. So if now's the time for you to get serious about financial planning, give us a call. Our number is 978-531-8108. That's 978-531-8108. Give us a call. We can send you out some information on the firm. We could set up an initial consultation, get some information from you as well. The other way you can contact us is to go to our website. Lots of information there. And our website is freedmanfinancial.com. That's Freedman.
2 E's and a D.
Financial.com. That's usually my line, so I'm glad he remembered it. But in any event, give us a call, contact us if you want to talk to us about holistic financial planning. Have a great week. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Mary.
Oh, thanks. Bye-bye.
During today's episode of Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial, your host may have discussed specific financial planning and investment ideas that are for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Please remember that investing involves risk and may include loss of principal. Always consult a certified financial planner professional, qualified attorney, or tax advisor prior to investing to determine what is appropriate for you. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA, SIPC.